By the grace of God, the church needs to trade in its flip-flops for boots. Boots of peace. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of this 5-part series, The Church Wages Peace. As we look at the gift of the grace of God embodied in this uniform that we can wear when we put on Christ. We talked about the breastplate of righteousness. Today we're going to look at the shoes. And shoes probably now are, I'm not going to say more popular than ever, but they're really popular. You think about people who are actual sneakerheads, people who buy shoes not to wear them, but just to have them. When we're looking at this uniform that a soldier for Christ wears, the shoes are pointed out. And when Paul uses the analogy to symbolize what those shoes represent, those shoes should represent peace. So now let's take that and bring that to 2023. We got all kinds of shoes. And there are 2 different types that are mentioned here that I'm thinking about. One of them is a flip-flop. And by nature, a flip-flop it's warm when it's usually warm. You wear that when you're kind of laid back. It's a casual vibe. But another reason we'd wear a flip-flop or a slide is because they're easy to put on and they're easy to take off. But that's not what God intends when he's talking about having our feet shod or our feet in shoes of peace. We need to think boots rather than flip-flops. Because see, with a flip-flop, it can flip and flop. It can be easily taken off. So you can wear that piece maybe on a Sabbath morning, but it's real easy to slip that same piece off and go rogue or just do you Sabbath night. It's easy to have that piece when your spouse or your children are doing what you're asking them to do, but when you slip out of that piece, when somebody is not doing what you've asked them to do, or somebody is acting out of line with what you expected, you get the idea. Flip-flopping piece. That's not what we're looking at here. We're talking about boots. And think about any soldier, right? Any soldier in the ancient day or even today, when they wore shoes, if they were going to wear shoes, they had to lace them up. Because of the nature of battle and because of the quick movements, you need something that's going to stay on your feet. So when we're talking about God wanting to shod our feet with peace, we need to lace them up. And we need to know that God desires to have this peace that's not based on the circumstance, because again, these are shoes that we wear in conflict. So if we ever need peace, it's when it's in a time of war. It's when we're in a conflict. How can we do that? Well, let's start by looking at Ephesians 6:15. Get the principle. He says, Ephesians 6:15, your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel or the message of peace. Okay, so now we're getting a connection where this peace is not something that's native to us. We don't find it in ourselves. And one of the things that used to frustrate me so much when I was trying to be calm or trying to be cool is that I was trying to be calm. I was trying to be cool. We need to find ourselves wrapped up in a message. Here Paul's calling it a message of peace. So let's look at some more instruction. How do we lace up ourselves in this message or this gift of peace? A verse in Isaiah chapter 52. This is like a commendation, but it's also a promise where it says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. Okay, so Ephesians says these are shoes. And the brand of these shoes, you can't get them in a store, you can't get them in an outlet. These are the gospel of peace shoes. Now, what is that gospel of peace? These are people who are going about telling people God is in control. And it didn't just say telling people, it says telling Zion, thy God reigneth. And this is where I start looking at myself first. One of the first steps to finding peace is not looking for it in the person I got an issue with or even in my own struggle. It's looking at God. And the message that those who have peace publish is that God reigns. Today, what we would say, God is in control. So it starts by putting God in his place, and that's first. And when we put our focus, not just our focus, this is important, but when we put our feelings into God, before we try to give them to other people, the Bible is saying here that we'll find peace. And peace does not always mean solution to the problem. It doesn't even mean resolution. But what it means is that wherever I go from here, it's God-led and not me felt. You know how it is when we get that amygdala hijack. Something happens and our emotions take over, even though we logically know this is right, this is wrong. So we start by giving those feelings to God. And we give those feelings to God, and guess what tends to happen? We start giving those thoughts to God. So that now we become people who start publishing what we have received. Think of yourself as like this printing press or this newspaper reporter. You start reporting on a story that was given to you. We deliver what God has shown to us. So now another verse to help kind of put this in some perspective. It happens to be in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9, where it says it this way, O Zion, in other words, O church, believers, Christians, that bringest good tidings. So the assumption is those of you who are publishing what you have received, who are giving what you've gotten from God, get thee up into the high mountain, O Jerusalem, that bringest good tidings. Lift up thy voice with strength. Lift it up, be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God. In both instances, in the reference to the message and to the messengers of peace, both are being called to point to God. This is something that takes learning. It is something that will be a journey. Please don't judge and base your success or growth on one instance. We have to see this through as learning and as growing. And as we put on and as we tie our shoes, you know how you lace up a shoe, particularly when you lace up a boot, like you're moving up that boot, right? You're starting down low and you keep lacing, you keep lacing. You don't stop in the middle of lacing up and say, oh, I have so many more holes to put in and give up. No, you keep lacing, you keep tying up. And guess what? Once you've laced up your shoe and you've gone into a game or you've gone into battle, what do you find yourself doing sometimes mid-game? Shoes get a little loose. Sometimes, incidentally, they can get untied. Do you throw your hands up, quit the game, take your shoes, throw them in the trash? No. You sit down, you regroup, and you lace them up again. And you get back in the game. And this process of publishing peace, regardless of how loud we say it or how high we go and getting it out to others, it all starts in the same place. We got to go to God with our problems. We have to go to God first with our feelings. We have to go to God and not just say, well, I'm just going to check in with him. I'm just going to tag base, but I'm going to deal with this myself. We can't live life giving people pieces of our mind, because if we do that, what happens? We end up losing it. We end up with nothing over time. But instead, God says, if we would make the decision to bring the problem to him first, find peace with him first before we deal with the people or the persons, we'll find ourselves on the right end of conflict. Not that there won't be conflict, but we'll find ourselves always pushing others, pushing people, because God is pushing us towards reconciliation and not wrath.